Okay, so we've scaffolded our site with the Express generator. We haven't changed very much. We just sort of looked at how it's all working. So let's take a look at how would we create a new view. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my index route. So if we want a notice page, we're going to use our Express router that gets created on line 5. And we want to set up a mapping for any requests that come to localhost 3000/about. So if we get a request at localhost 3000/about, we need to create a response handler. What happens if we get a request at that path? So we're going to call res, which stands for response. We're going to call res.render. And we want it to render a view called about. Next, we don't use it very often. So it doesn't have to be here. It's if after we send the response, we then want to call something else. So if we want to continue execution of the stack, if there are other processes we want to run. Yeah, it's there by default, but you can also remove it. We'll use it very occasionally. So now we want to make a new view. So if I right click on views, new, I'll just put in new file. WebStorm doesn't actually, it has templates for Pug, Jade, but that's fine. I'll just say new file and I'll call it about.hps. So I've created a view called about, and my about path is going to load that view. So unlike in .NET, where the method name automatically loads a view with the same name, the convention is the route should call a view with the same name here, but in Node we can name them anything we want. It's not automatic. Like in Node, if we have an about method, it will automatically look for a view called about. Here, we're manually naming the things. It's just that this name here has to match this name here. The extension is not required. Okay, I read that question on your face. Because, and the reason it's not required is because in app.js, when we use that -HBS flag with the generator, it sets the view engine as HBS automatically. It knows all the views are using handlebars. So we don't have to specify the extension. We can, but we don't need to. So now let's see. So NodeMon, when I save, NodeMon is still running. So it should be restarting. So I can load my home page, and then I want to try going to /about. So now we get our new view. I'll give you a chance to chew whatever you're eating first, because I'm not going to understand you. We created a new view called about.hps. So let's try passing a value, a server-side value, as well. I mean, our method right now, our get request loads the view, but it just loads a static view. So maybe if I put on a handlebars value called message in our controller, when we call the view, we want to pass in a JSON object that has the message key and some value. And then whatever value we pass in, that'll get rendered in its place here. So if I set up the key of message, content from the controller goes here. So by adding this JSON object as a parameter to my res.render, that should populate our handlebars variable, handlebars enclosed variable in the view. As long as this name matches this one. So what we have here is actually most of what you need to do your assignment. I've basically written almost all the code you actually need. Use the generator to create a portfolio site and set up a minimum of 4 routes. The index route is already there by default. You need to set up an about me and a project or a work route and view, and then a contact route and view. And then just put the content in, add some styling. So you can see what I mean. This is really not very complicated. You can either write the HTML or you can dynamically pass the content in a JSON object from the controller, and you could render dynamic content in your view. You can do it either way. I'd probably prefer you do this just to get used to creating data in a JSON object and passing it. Sure. Well, we'd probably put it inside of maybe a paragraph. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we use HTML wrapping for formatting. Yes. The one other thing I'm going to do, the one thing the Express generator does that annoys me is it names this folder roots, which drives me nuts. Roots is a terrible name. You don't have to do this. I am going to refactor mine. If I can find my refactor. I'm going to rename my roots folder and all of the references. I want this folder called controllers because these files are controllers. They handle the logic. And we will add a models folder next week. I like sticking with the models, views, and controllers terminology. So by refactoring it also in app.js, it now changes the paths to my controllers. It actually gives me two. It even gives me a user's controller. We haven't looked at that one. And any requests that start with the URL/users are handled here. So we can try this. If I go to localhost 3000/users, it now invokes my user's controller instead of invoking the index controller. For your assignment, you do not have to use multiple controllers. You can do everything in the index controller. That's fine. Next week, when we add on MongoDB, we'll create a tasks controller. So the index controller will be responsible for kind of managing the static content, and then the task controller will handle all of the logic to do with interacting with our tasks table in our database for doing create, read, update, and delete. So we separate out the logic into separate controllers with Node the same way we would do it with .NET. So let's add a bit of formatting. So what we want to do is add Bootstrap to this. And then in our layout template, which is down in Views Layout, we want to link to the Bootstrap style sheet, and we can add build a little navigation bar into our template. Doesn't come, and then hopefully we may have time even to push this up to Heroku. Hopefully we can do that today. So I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to stop my server for a minute. Now there's a few ways. What we need is we need the Bootstrap CSS and JavaScript file. So we could download those. We could download them directly from Bootstrap. There is actually a Bootstrap NPM package. So it'll install a Bootstrap folder in node modules, then we can just copy the files we need. So I'll do that instead rather than having to go out and find it. So I'll stop my server. So I want to do an npm I bootstrap minus save. So I'm installing Bootstrap locally in my project. So what I want to do, notice in my public folder, we have a JavaScript and a style sheets. I want to copy out the Bootstrap JavaScript file from node modules into here. And I want to copy the CSS. So if I expand node modules and Bootstrap, under distribution, CSS, here's our minified bootstrap.min.css. So I'm going to copy this file. And I'm going to paste it into my style sheets folder. Bootstrap minus save. You have to expand it. It's underneath. So when you first open CSS, you just see the full versions, the unminified, but they're expandable. If you get the unminified one, that's fine. Make sure you spell Bootstrap correctly. Okay, so what's the difference between the minified and the unminified? Here's the unminified, and here's minified. So at runtime, so this one's easier to work with, but at runtime, this one's faster because it's removed all the white space. It's a smaller file to load. Yes, it is. So there's also, so that was inside the CSS. There's also inside of dist, there's a JS folder. There's a bootstrap.js, and I'm going to copy the minified JavaScript file. So that's used for handling like animations with Bootstrap classes, like a slider or progress bar. It needs that JS file. So I'm going to copy that bootstrap.min.js into my public JavaScripts. Again, if you don't take the unminified one, that's fine. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to change those files, so I'm fine to use the minified ones. So I can close up node modules. So now I want to add in my views layout, add Bootstrap. And then down at the bottom, I want to add the JavaScript. And I really don't like here how this template isn't using single quotes. It's terrible. Or we should always have double quotes around our HTML attributes. I'm going to replace them on my line 5. It's annoying me. I copied them. So I copied the style sheet to public style sheet. Oh, here? No, you mean in the path. Why don't I have public here? Yeah. Good question. I don't, and here's why. So it says, basically, static assets are in the public folder. So we do not need to include public in the path to every public asset. It's here by default. It's a good question. app.js already sets that up. So if I run my app with NodeMon again, we should see a few changes. We should see at least the font change. Right, so it's using a Bootstrap 4 default font. Now again, we can customize this because we have two style sheets, remember. We have Bootstrap that we added, but we also have our own default style sheet that the Express generator gives us. So we can override any of the styles we want. So you want to use a different font? Go ahead. Depends in what, pardon? Yes, I believe so. So if I want to put this in as, you know, if I want to change the font here. Actually, if I want to change it, hang on. I think I have to change the order here. So yes, they're cascading style sheets. So I'll try Bootstrap first and my own second. Yeah, it does. So if Bootstrap is listed first, the font from my own overrides it, right? Bootstrap sets out a font, but then cascades my style sheet, overrides it. So we probably want to put Bootstrap before our own style, so that way our own style will override anything that comes with Bootstrap. So let's add a little nav bar. From node modules, Bootstrap, dist, JS. And then I expanded, you can see on this overhead. It's this file here. It's high. Have a look, you'll see. You have to expand. The bootstrap.js is collapsible, expanded, it's in there. If you take the main one, the unminified one, that's fine too, doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're gonna go and grab a Bootstrap navigation bar and throw it into our layout file. So all our views have the same shared header. I may have put a link up on D2L. Yeah, okay, so if you click this link here in lesson 4, it says sample Bootstrap 4 navbar. We're gonna take this navbar and then we'll tweak it a bit. So I'm gonna open this up. It's from W3 Schools. So what I want is, let's see, which one? We'll take this one under the, I want this one, the collapsible navigation bar. So this makes it mobile responsive, that if we collapse our window or view it on a phone, it gives us the little hamburger menu. So scroll down to where it says collapsing the navigation bar. And let's just grab this whole block. Just copy the whole thing in here. Yeah, if you take it from here, yeah, just when we will put in a link. Yeah, I will in my code. So that's what I would want you to do as well. It kind of is, but so now where would we put this in here? On what line? Do we want it after 11? Right, before the page body. So inside the body tag. So I'll maybe put in a comment. Actually, I'll paste the code and then I'll put in the link. I'll copy the link and paste it in. So in here above our body, there's our nav bar. Oops. Yeah. So here's our nav bar, and now I'll grab the URL and paste that into a comment. So this gives us a navigation bar. So I haven't made any changes. I've just pasted it in exactly as W3 School. So there's what we get. 3 links. And if I go to About, all the pages are using my layout template. Mm-hmm. I think it's, you know what, I think we need to add jQuery. I think that's why it's not working. We didn't add jQuery. I believe it uses jQuery to expand or contract for that animation, and we haven't added that. Actually, sorry, it's not jQuery. We need to add the Bootstrap JS file that we included. That's why it doesn't work. So down at the bottom of our, oh no, we did add it. Okay, I'll come back to that part. So let's change a few things here. Let's change our main link. It just says navbar. We'll call that COMP2068G Task Manager. And right now this link, none of these links are active. So the path we want to link to, this should go to the home page. Most sites, you click the logo or the name of the site, it takes you to home. So that will load our index. So we'll make our second link about what should the path be for this one. Right, it's got a call. I'll change these two. We'll get to them probably after reading week. We deal with authentication. I'll make the last 2 links saying register and log in. This is week 4. Reading week is the week of, I think, October 21st. So if I just reload it. Right. So now clicking this takes me home. Clicking here takes me to About. These links don't go anywhere yet. I know my menu is not, my collapsal menu isn't working properly. I'm not going to worry about that for right now. Yeah, but even when it is, it's not popping out. I think we may have to add jQuery in order to get this to work. Anyway, I'll just leave that for now. Okay, so all I want to do, the one other thing I want to do with this, our code is done. I want to see if we can actually deploy this to a server. So step 1 is I'm going to just push this to GitHub. It's a new project. So I'm going to initialize and add all my files. Git init, then git add dot. Yeah, add space dot. I probably should have used the git ignore, but I didn't. I won't worry about it. No, it's git init, git space add space dot. This is a fantastic job interview question, by the way. So it's I probably put the commands on D2L. They're probably there. They're certainly there in our other course in weekly learning. They may not be there for this course. So I'm going to go make a new repository while that's running. So make a new repository. I'll call it COMP2068G. Task Manager, fall 2019. So create the repository. And then I'm going to do a commit, connect the remote, and push. Commit -m, lesson 4, app setup. Don't do it on GitHub because then you've got two different versions, one online, and then you can't push. So no, we'll deal with the git ignore later. Don't do that. You will not be able to push. I should have set up the git ignore first, but I didn't. I'll worry about that next week. So now I'll just copy those last two lines, adding the remote and pushing. Yeah, I should have either created and pulled or created the git ignore locally. So now I'm going to push. So here's my map. So now I want to deploy this to a cloud server. So you can get a free cloud account where you can host up to 5 applications. So if you pop over quickly to Heroku.com and click on the sign up link, you can sign up for free. It'll just send you a quick verification email. So just go to Heroku.com and click on sign up. It's optional. It's much simpler to work with than Azure. Yep, they give you up to 5 free subdomains, so long as they run on Heroku app, like your site.herokuapp.com, they let you run 5 for free indefinitely. So I have 5. I guess I need to get rid of this one. So I'll show you how to create a new app in a minute. I just have to delete one. Node. Okay, wait 10 seconds and try again. That's later. So once we have our account, we can create a new app. You can let it randomly assign a name. It'll give you a name like Whistling Forest 2837, or you can call it something. I'll call it Task Manager Fall 19. And I'll create my app. Don't put any spaces in your name. Yep. And then it's asking for my deployment method. So if I choose GitHub, it will ask you first to authenticate through your GitHub account. My GitHub account's already connected. It already shows my GitHub name. And now it just says, okay, what repository are we deploying from? Why would it be dangerous? Yep. Yep. That's why you use branches. That's why you use branches. You don't commit new code directly to the master branch. You usually commit it to a testing or a staging branch, and you test it. And then you only merge it into the master branch when the testing is done. That's what the branching is for. I'm only using the master branch in this case. With a real production app, we would never commit, right? So I actually named I called it Task Manager at a typo, but I'm not going to rename the repository now. So I just connect my repository up, and then I'm going to enable. So it asks you which branch do you want to deploy? Well, I only have one, which is master. I'm going to enable automatic deployment. This means anytime I push a change to master, Heroku every 60 seconds is checking that repository for a new commit. And if we break something, it gives us an archive of all the previous commits, and we can just roll back and pick an earlier version if we break something. Sure. So I can look in my activity feed. Oh, and now I just click, so it's connected, says it automatically deploys. I'll just say, go ahead and deploy it now. But now from now on, it should deploy automatically. So it connects to my repository, says build succeeded, which is good. All right, my app was deployed successfully. Let's see if it actually runs. So I'll make a quick change, Ken, coming to your, I'm not going to break it, but I'll make a successful change and we'll see how the continuous deployment works. So if I go back, maybe I'll change this message. Actually, or I'll just change some content on my homepage. If I go back to my index.hps, say, just put on a descriptive message. So someone who comes here, if I link to it from my portfolio, they know what this is. So I'm just putting on a message. So I'm going to make a new commit. I'll just add updated homepage. And then I'll just do a push to the master branch. So within a minute, Heroku should update my site. So push successfully. Git push origin master. Git commit minus M with the message. So if I go to my activity log, it shows it deployed. Now, hopefully our continuous so if I click my home page now, so it hasn't updated yet. I can, it says it's set to auto deploy, so I'm a bit curious to see what's going on. Okay, I may just have to wait. I'm not sure what the interval is. It's not very long. So I'll go back to my activity. I thought I set up continuous deployment. So every push to master will deploy a new version. Deploys happen automatically. Kiff, any other question? For this one, you can make it private because we will put in a database connection string probably next week. So it should be deploying my update. Says we're connected. I mean, I can do it manually, but I shouldn't have to. I may have missed one step in my deployment setup. It automatically deploys. Let's go back. Actually, maybe. Okay, so my new commit is here. It updated, so it's up here on GitHub. I'm a bit surprised that it's not automatically updating. It should be. I can redeploy it manually, although it shouldn't be necessary. I'll just click deploy again. I'm not sure why it's not automatically updating. It should be. Okay, I'll have to figure out why. Okay, so it says successful. And now when I go to my home page, I should get my new, this page should get updated. I shouldn't have had to manually redeploy it though. I'll have to figure out what happened there. If I go to the activity, so this is where, so here's my new version. So if my new version broke something, I can just click roll back to here. So if I roll back, it's asking me to confirm. So this message should go away.
And so when you have any assets that you use, you're able to pull that from GitHub and whatnot? Things like images, like a business.
Yep.
So you basically never have to file away.
You do not need to use FTP with continuous deployment. We don't use FTP anymore with the cloud. We just use continuous deployment. So Azure offers this. All cloud services will offer this. So this is kind of the standard way now of the modern way of deploying web apps in a cloud environment is use continuous deployment. So this is why using version control system is so important, because you can't do this if you're not using version control. And version control, unlike FTP, also allows us to roll back when we break something. And to Peter's point, we don't typically deploy straight from master. Again, we usually have some kind of testing branch in between. We test those changes, we make sure they're working before we merge them to master. Typically, yeah. So I did this yesterday. So project I was on, one of the developers said, I've made a bunch of changes, can you review them? Because the client was asking, where are they? So he made a branch for that specific feature. I downloaded a copy of the branch locally, tested it all, made sure that it worked. And once I was satisfied that it worked properly, then I did a pull request to merge that branch into the master. So it shows what files were changed, and I merged them. And this is deployed direct to Azure with continuous deployment. So I didn't have to upload anything. All I had to do was GitHub would say, okay, merge this branch into master. A minute later, I tested it live, works, emailed the client, here you go, that new feature's active. Tested it, said we're all good. And if it broke, that's fine. I just roll it back one version. And then we debug it while the site continues running as it was previously. So this is kind of standard operating procedure now. We want to get away from FTP. Um, did you get prompted to, I'm just wondering, did you get prompted to authenticate in your GitHub account in Heroku? Okay, that's the issue. Like mine is already connected. There's probably a prompt asking you to authorize. All right. Okay, you guys have another class now, don't you? Okay, I will let you get out of here. Okay.